Hey there, beasties. Why does Paizo hate large creatures? Let's get into it, shall we? Now, it started with Howl of the Wild in the introduction of numerous large races. There's awakened animals, there's minotaurs, centaurs, and there's been things introduced since then. Now, as anyone who's been playing the game for a long time can tell you, large creatures used to have an innate reach. If you were a large bipedal creature, your standard reach was 10 feet instead of 5. Now, the centaur would be an interesting case here because they're a large creature with very human torso proportions. They're large because they have a big old horse butt. So they would retain their 5-foot reach as normal. But your other large things, why don't they have this reach? Now, I think a lot of people will tell you, oh, it's to balance. But my question is, balance what? Large creatures are at a tremendous disadvantage. Let's take away the fact that almost every, Paizo adventure takes place in a phone booth for the most part, and that a large creature is just inherently at a disadvantage because of space. The party enemies can't fit in the rooms. Hallways are almost always 5 feet wide, so you're kind of reduced at, you are impacted severely. But let's take all that out. Let's just say, oh, here we are. We're in a fight. We're in a big open area, and we have a large member of our team. Well, that large character, for the advantage of being large, which is none, you occupy 4 squares, which means you're going to trigger traps more easily, and also you can be flanked way more easily. 3 people can flank you instead of 2. And if one person's on one side and then 2 are on the other, you are also, this is something arguable that every GM may decide to do different. But at my table, your allies don't grant you lesser cover because enemies, when they shoot at you, you stick up way higher. They're not actually shooting through what would be the vertical space of your ally. So if you want to assume your ally's like a 5-foot block, 5 by 5 by 5, yeah, of course, they're going to stick up a little bit, but head and shoulders type thing, not a lot. Where your large character, easily 7-8 feet tall, super easy to shoot them and not worry about that lesser cover. Large characters are a very tempting target because, again, they take up more real estate on the map. So maneuvering around them takes more move, so it's easier to just run up and attack them. Now, there's also the overwhelming statistical fact that the majority of large characters are going to be a martial combative character. Not seeing too many, not saying they're not out there, but I don't see too many large spellcasters hanging out in the back. They are typically barbarians and fighters and things like that champions that can get up into the fight, swing those big old D12 weapons, deal massive damage, which is fun. I mean, that's kind of what you want out of your large character. But as he said, we just gave a big list of disadvantages. What's the advantage? Well, there isn't one. There is no actual advantage to playing a large character. And that is not balance at all. That is actually rather unbalanced. Now, I think they might be conflating even fairness with it because, again, you have a rather large disadvantage. Now, I will say there's a 2nd level fighter feat that any fighter can take. You can get lunge so they can attack with reach. So they have that 10-foot reach. And if they have a pole arm, they can get a 15-foot reach so what is the issue in giving it? Is it like, oh, well, lunge doesn't stack with reactive strike. Okay, so all of this is because of reactive strike? Like you don't want the player to gain that extra 5 feet of reactive strike that they could possibly get? Because that's nullified at the, I think it's 10th level fighters can get, there's a stance they can get that they just basically have that lunge applied all the time and they can use for reactions. So that's kind of nullified then. You also have, it started originally at like 17th level. Characters had ancestry feats that would allow them to become large, like a permanent enlarge spell, which does give you reach. And then as time progressed, 17th level seemed really high for that. It's been downgraded to like level 13, like automatons can become large at 13 and other stuff. Poor lizard folk, they still have to wait till level 17. Take that, lizard folk. But like the Minotaur has a 5th level ancestry feat that they gain reach with a 2-handed weapon, and it is you can enter a stance and bam, you have reach. So they sort of get that, but again, if it's already a reach weapon, no, sorry, I believe the feat specifically says that it doesn't. Let's see. Yeah, it specifically says you can't have reach for this. So again, we're really going out of our way to deny this 15-foot reach. Now, as someone that has played these games the overwhelming majority of my life, I have been GMing games for 30 years. I don't know what problem we're trying to correct here. And I'm coming from when you used to be able to have a whole bunch of attacks of opportunity or reactive strikes that you had one, and then you could take combat reflexes and add a number equal to your dexterity modifier. So a lot of us come from a place where you could have a ton of these. So that's been reduced greatly. I really don't understand why this penalizing of large creatures. And like I said, let's get back to the map. I mean, there are so many places you can't fit in a hallway with your allies. You can't move around because the spacing typically in a fight, you can't even stand in the spaces. You need the reach because you can't get up to the enemy because your allies are typically separated by 0 to 1 squares when they're fighting things. So that reach is valuable to make you still effective. I've been wondering this a long time, and I remember when Paizo, when Howl of the Wild came out, they're like, oh, we're introducing our first large characters, and that was the question on everyone's mind is, what are you going to do about reach? And the answer to that is, well, nothing. You don't get reach. Now, I do know that reach is no longer this is exactly how everything works. A lot of us carry over the old rule of, okay, if you are a large biped, you have reach. If you're a large quadruped, you don't have reach. Well, this isn't codified anywhere in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There's plenty of large creatures that have certain attacks that don't have reach. Like, they might have reach with their arms, but then they don't have reach with their bite. Things like that, which that's totally understandable. But again, just on the player's side, I've never understood this. Nope, this is just way too powerful. We can't allow this at our table. Oh, chaos, pure chaos. If we couldn't play, everyone would be upset. The players wouldn't like it. The GM wouldn't like it. Like, I honestly, I don't get it. And, I kind of feel a little bit the same way about flying. They introduced rules for flying in the Lost Omens Ancestry Guide that there was like, oh, you can give characters flying at first level if you want, and they should have a fly speed of 15 feet. But when you take into account that by the rules, if you move up, that is considered difficult terrain, that, 15 feet, you literally can only move up 5 feet per move. Now, I totally understand if you have a flying character and a ranged weapon or a spellcaster that, you're well out of harm's way. But I have a feeling most GMs would simply we're going to add a lot more range attacks. And go ahead and get knocked unconscious while you're flying. Because now, if you're hit by a crit and then you fall, and now you're immediately at dying 3. And very, very likely to die your very next round if someone doesn't get to you. So it certainly carries with it its own host of disadvantages. But back to large. Large characters, again, you find equipment. It's not size for you. I know transferring runes makes things a little different and stuff like that. But I just don't see, like I said, there is no advantage. There isn't. Some of them get made up for feats, but you could easily apply feats like that to any size ancestry. Doesn't even have to be. The tiny creatures suffer a monstrous disadvantage in the sense they lose their reach. Well, Well, why? Why did the tiny creature lose its reach? Well, it can't reach that far. Well, but that argument doesn't hold water because you've taken the large creature that does reach that far and go, nope, sorry, we can't do that. That's just going to be way too powerful. But tiny creatures, yeah, screw you. You get 0 reach. Enjoy. So it really doesn't make sense on no matter how you look at it. So anyways, this is just my rant on large creatures, and I have personally allowed large characters reach in games, and it was not detrimental. I think if you want to put it behind a paywall of getting a feat, I think any large character really should be able to get the Minotaur feat if they truly want. And I think the feat should apply to reach weapons as well. You go ahead and get that 15-foot reach. Be the character you want to be. I guarantee you're going to go down more because your GM's going to be like, oh my God, this guy can reach the entire map. Get him. We have to take him down. And they're just going to focus fire you down. But that's fun because your entire party's trying to keep you up because you can reach everywhere. So it's a great time. I think this is a nanny rule that just goes way out of bounds. It is way too intrusive. And again, fixing a problem that really didn't exist. But you know what? You guys let me know what you think. I'd love to hear, do you think reach being denied to large creatures is warranted? Let me know. I'd love to hear your opinions as to why you feel that way. So, as always, game well, my friends.